Alrighty, guys, so let's talk about this new Star Wars movie that could have been The Hunt for Ben Solo. And we gotta back up here, because when I first heard that title, I was like, what? Is there gonna be a new Star Wars movie? And the answer is no, not really. But there almost was. Because at first you read the title, The Hunt for Ben Solo, and you're like, oh, maybe a prequel, maybe before The Last Jedi, or before the training sequences that were shown in The Last Jedi, maybe, right? No, this was going to be post Rise of Skywalker. There are so many layers to this, and Adam Driver has recently discussed all of them. So I wanted to really dive in here and talk about all the different things and then give my thoughts on this scrapped, right? Because this movie is not happening anymore, this scrapped Star Wars movie called The Hunt for Ben Solo. So Adam Driver was giving an interview recently. He talked a lot about Star Wars, and he said that now that this project is officially dead, he can talk about it to the public. So let's go through his comments here. I'm reading from Entertainment Weekly, and then we'll talk about it on the other side, because I have a lot of thoughts on this. So, but when talking about just his thoughts on Star Wars, he said, quote, "I always was interested in doing another Star Wars. I had been talking about doing another one since 2021. Kathleen Kennedy, the head of Lucasfilm, had reached out. I always said, with a great director and a great story, I'd be there in a second. I love that character and love playing him." Which is great to hear, right? Because I think that one of the actors who really came out of it unscathed, to be quite honest with you. Unscathed meaning there was a lot of backlash for a lot of different characters. And it's not all the characters' fault, it's not all the actors' fault, it's not all the directors' faults. But I think that really, universally, people agree that Adam Driver gave it his all. And he, I think, much like how Ewan McGregor came out of the prequels, pretty much unscathed, despite the fact that the prequels were generally not well received, I think Adam Driver was pretty similar. So it's great to see, based on the fact that maybe he, one might have thought he didn't have a great time, but no, he really likes the character. He says here, then he was asked about another project, the project that they were pitching, and he says, quote, "It was called The Hunt for Ben Solo, and it was really cool. But it is no more, so I can finally talk about it. We presented the script to Lucasfilm. They loved the idea. They totally understood our angle and why we were doing it. We took it to Bob Iger and Alan Bergman, I think, and they said no. Those are the heads of Disney. They didn't see how Ben Solo was alive, and that was that." Okay, so I have a lot of thoughts about this, because I think on the one hand, right, people might be going, "Oh, wait a second, why did the Disney executives kill this idea? It could have been a great idea, blah, 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 blah." There's going to be people on that side of the aisle. There's going to be people on the other side of the aisle of, what a stupid idea anyways, and why would Kylo Ren be alive? You saw him disappear in the Rise of Skywalker, and he died, and he gave up his life force to whatever save Rey, and it's going to be another case of, oh, somehow Ben Solo returns, right? There are going to be people on both sides of the aisle. And I just want to point out too, this movie isn't happening anyway, so it's all speculation. It's not going to happen. We can have fun debates and fun discussions about whether or not the movie would have been good, would have been fun, would have made sense, but at the end of the day, let's not get too heated. The movie is not happening. So I just want to put that out there. Here's the thing. Generally speaking, I actually, when I first read this news, right, the idea of a sequel film taking place after Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker called The Hunt for Ben Solo, I actually found myself aligning with Disney and saying, what a ridiculous idea, because how in the world is Ben Solo alive? How are you going to make this movie without doing another Episode 9 Palpatine, somehow Emperor Palpatine returned? How is that going to happen? There's going to have to be some really weird retconning, I think, personally, to even make this movie possible. And just the backlash of that alone, I don't even know is worth making the movie, even if the movie's great. So on that level, I was like, yeah, I get it. If I was presented with this idea, I would have been like, wait, what? How is this even happening? That all being said, and also, I should point out for more context, it wasn't discussed in this Entertainment Weekly article, but it was discussed in other articles as well. There was a whole treatment for this film written. I think that there was even a script written. I want to say Steven Soderbergh, a very accomplished filmmaker in his own right, I think either wrote the treatment or wrote the script for it. So it's not like this was just something that Adam Driver was tossing around one day and Kathleen Kennedy was like, hey, wouldn't that be fun? This had real legs under it. It had a treatment at the very least, if not a full script for this movie. So there was a fully fleshed out idea for The Hunt for Ben Solo, right? This is not like some half-baked idea that went to Disney and they were like, no, that's dumb. Just to put that out there, just to be clear, right? This really could have happened. This movie could have happened if Disney had given it a green light. So again, from the Disney perspective, yeah, I don't understand. How is Kylo Ren alive? How does that make sense? And I think in general, in general, right? If any, let's just say, generic actor, generic writer comes up to Disney and they're like, hey, we have this great idea for reviving Ben Solo. What do you think about this movie called The Hunt for Ben Solo? In general, I think that is the end of discussion. How do you make this movie? Especially given the backlash of the sequel trilogy. I mean, they're making another Rey movie, to be clear. So, maybe that's inconsistent, but I just don't see how this movie could happen. But, and we're never going to know, Adam Driver seems super thrilled about the script, super thrilled about the idea, and Adam Driver is an Oscar caliber actor. He's not just doing things for the sake of doing things. He is in a position in Hollywood to do what he wants to do. He is an incredible actor in his own right. And again, I just don't think he's not doing Star Wars for a paycheck. I don't think. I mean, I'm sure the money's good, but he's not just doing Star Wars for the paycheck, is my presumption. I have to believe if there really was a good idea, if there was a really solid, well thought out, good idea that Steven Soderbergh and Adam Driver pitched to Disney, I would hope, my hope, and we're just never going to know unless Bob Iger comes out and says it himself and reveals what this entire plot was, or if Adam Driver reveals what the entire plot was. We're not going to know what the rationale was, what the story actually was. My hope is that Bob Iger and Alan Bergman did not just turn down the script purely on the basis of Kylo Ren can't possibly be alive anymore, and that's the only rationale. Because while it is, in my eyes, pretty fair to think that and to wonder how are you going to make this movie, if Adam Driver and Steven Soderbergh actually brought forward a really compelling reason and a really compelling script, then they should have made the movie. I think that's it. They should have made the movie. And again, I'm not a marketing executive. I'm not a budget expert. I don't know all the financials and stuff like that. So given all that, just creatively, if there was an actual good reason, then I would have hoped Bob Iger and Alan Bergman left the door open wide enough to allow for that possibility, but ultimately came to the decision that no, this is not a good idea in general. Because again, if they were just using the rationale of we just can't see how this is possible, and that's it, they just didn't give the idea the time of day, I'm disappointed. Maybe the movie would have been a disaster, but maybe the movie could have been really, really, really good, right? We're not going to know. We're just never going to know. But I think there are plenty of examples where you look at a movie conceptually and you go, why are you making this movie? And it's turned out great. I've said it before, right? Toy Story 4, I thought was a ludicrous idea. Why are we doing this? For what reason? You ended the trilogy in such a beautiful fashion. Somebody at Disney and Pixar pitched Toy Story 4. And they said, I have a good idea for this. And if an executive at Disney said, no, we're done. We're not doing it anymore. We're going to get so much backlash, we're done. Then the movie would have never come out. And I thought Toy Story 4 was great. And guess what? It made $1 billion. So just being closed-minded to ideas just on a pure principle basis is not, I'm talking about creatively, right? Specifically creatively, is not always the best idea. So I don't know what this movie would have been like. For all I know, if Adam Driver comes out with the script tomorrow and posts it online and I read it and I'm like, oh no, this really should not have been made, then that's that. But I hope that Bob Iger and Alan Bergman and the powers that be at Disney didn't just shut down a movie that could have been really, really great. We're not going to know, but that is my hope. Guys, what do you make of all this? The Hunt for Ben Solo could have been a Star Wars movie that was probably going to come out in the next couple of years. That would have been a really interesting alternative universe. What do you think about this idea? And what do you think about all the decisions that went into not making this movie? Let me know in the comments down below.